Welcome back to the channel Coins Dealer everyone to this exciting video where we dive deep into the world of rare coins, and today's focus is on one of the most astonishing stories from numismatics, the famous 1999 D1 cent USA coin that has been valued at an unbelievable $76 million, a figure that sounds incredible when compared to its modest face value of just a single cent. But as we will uncover, it is precisely the errors, mistakes, and mysteries surrounding this particular penny that propel it to the heights of value and fascination, captivating collectors and investors around the globe who are always on the lookout for that rare anomaly that changes the ordinary into the extraordinary. And in the case of this coin, it is a combination of striking errors, mint mark anomalies, production inconsistencies, and the general law of rare finds that come together to explain why something so small could command such a staggering price in auctions and private collections. The 1999 D penny, minted in Denver, might look like any other coin at first glance, but numismatists who study the details know that subtle variations are everything in this field, and one of the most significant reasons for its value is the mint mark error, because the D that was supposed to be precisely placed and struck was instead slightly misplaced or doubled in certain examples, creating a variety that was never intended to leave the mint. And once these errors are recognized by the coin collecting community, they often become legendary, since rarity and uniqueness always drive demand, and the scarcer the example, the higher the price people are willing to pay, especially in an age where collectors compete across the globe with instant communication and online auctions. What makes this case even more fascinating is the magnitude of the valuation. $76 million is a sum usually associated with masterpieces of art or historical treasures, and for a penny to cross into that category, it means the coin combines rarity with myth, desirability, and a perfect storm of conditions that elevate it beyond just a collectible item into a piece of cultural history. And when such stories circulate, they ignite further curiosity, because everyone starts wondering whether the penny in their pocket change could be the next hidden gem, a thought that adds an air of mystery and excitement to everyday currency. Another contributing factor is the general principle of error coins, because in coinage history, any deviation from perfection, whether it is a double strike, a misaligned die, a clipped planchet, or a mint mark error, becomes a marker of rarity. And since minting processes are usually tightly controlled to prevent such flaws, the few that slip through become special. And in the case of the 1999 D penny, the error has been deemed both significant and nearly unique, pushing it into that exclusive realm where demand skyrockets beyond reason, especially when a wealthy collector decides to bid aggressively, setting record prices that then become the new benchmark. This coin also benefits from the fact that 1999 was the final year before the millennium, giving it an added layer of symbolic importance, as many collectors have a special interest in coins from milestone years, believing they capture a moment in history. And when you combine that with the Denver mint mark anomaly, you have a recipe for extreme desirability. Another possibility often discussed is that there might have been a very small batch or even a single coin struck with the wrong die pairing or struck on the wrong planchet, which sometimes happens when a blank meant for another denomination accidentally gets fed into the wrong press, resulting in off-metal errors that are prized far more than ordinary pennies. And while not every detail about the exact origin of this 1999 D rarity is fully agreed upon, the mystery only adds to the allure, because the unknown invites speculation and enhances the narrative, making the coin not just a physical object but a story, and stories are what make collectibles valuable. For collectors, provenance is also key, meaning who owned the coin, where it was discovered, and how it surfaced in the market, and a coin with a legendary backstory tends to carry far more prestige than one that is merely rare. And in the case of the $76 million penny, the mythology has taken on a life of its own, circulating across news outlets, collector forums, and video discussions just like this, fueling interest and cementing its place as one of the most talked about coins in modern times. To put it simply, this coin's astronomical worth comes from the fusion of its face value defied by minting error, the Denver mint mark anomaly, the extreme rarity, the symbolic timing of the year 1999, the possibility of off-metal striking, and the legendary buzz that grows each time collectors discuss it. And when you add all those elements together, you arrive at a perfect storm where a 1-cent coin becomes more valuable than entire collections combined, turning the ordinary into the extraordinary. So next time you come across an old penny, don't dismiss it too quickly, because while most will only ever be worth their face value, there is always that possibility, however slim, that you might stumble upon a hidden treasure like the 1999 D-era penny, a coin that reminds us that value is not always about material but about rarity, history, and the stories we tell. And that is why a tiny copper coin can be worth $76 million, forever etching its name into the fascinating world of numismatics and capturing the imagination of collectors for generations to come. World of rare coins, where a simple penny can transform into a multi-million-dollar treasure, and in this video we will dive deep into the incredible story of the 1979 1-cent USA coin that is rumored to be worth as much as $87 million, a staggering contrast to its tiny face value of just 1 cent. And the reason behind this astronomical jump lies not in the ordinary circulation of coins but in the extraordinary errors, mistakes, and rare mint mark variations that make certain coins highly desirable to collectors and numismatists around the world who are willing to pay astonishing sums to own a piece of history unlike any other. So let's explore how such a humble coin, which most people would normally overlook or toss into a jar, could actually be hiding secrets that elevate it into the ranks of legendary collectibles. When we talk about coin errors, we are not just referring to minor imperfections but to rare occurrences during the minting process that result in unique deviations from the standard design, and in the case of the 1979 penny, several possibilities exist that fuel the legend of its immense value, including double die errors where the image or lettering is struck twice slightly offset, producing a shadowy and distinct doubling effect that makes the coin stand out instantly under magnification, or off-center strikes where the design fails to align properly with the coin's blank planchet, leaving part of the surface blank or partially imprinted, or even wrong planchet errors where a penny might have been accidentally struck on a planchet meant for a dime or another denomination entirely, creating a freak of nature in the numismatic world that collectors would fight to acquire at any cost. And there are also misaligned dies or clipped planchets that further enhance the rarity factor, each of which has the potential to elevate a penny's value from pocket change to life-changing fortune. The specific mention of mint mark errors adds another fascinating dimension because in 1979, pennies were struck at different mints including Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, and while the Philadelphia mint usually did not use a mint mark, both Denver and San Francisco coins carried the letters D and S respectively, but mistakes could happen in punching these tiny letters onto the die, and sometimes a mint mark might be doubled, misplaced, or even entirely missing when it should have been present, leading to varieties that collectors crave, and in some cases repunched mint marks or faint traces of multiple strikes of the same mint letter make these coins unique in their own right. So when combined with the 1979 issue, these mint mark irregularities form the perfect recipe for rarity and skyrocketing value. To understand why such coins can fetch figures as outrageous as $87 million, it is important to consider not just the errors themselves but the psychology of collecting, where rarity, uniqueness, and the story behind the coin amplify its desirability to such extremes. And while not every error coin will come close to such astronomical prices, when the right combination of error, condition, historical curiosity, and collector demand align, the market can place almost limitless value on the piece. And the 1979 penny with such potential errors has captured imaginations for precisely this reason, becoming an almost mythical object of pursuit that keeps people checking their pocket change, their old jars of coins, or inherited collections in the hope of stumbling upon one. Consider that numismatics is a field where even small variations can lead to dramatic jumps in value, such as double dies from other years like the famous 1955 or 1969 pennies that routinely sell for thousands, and when we project that rarity and demand onto a 1979 coin rumored to carry not only doubling or striking mistakes but possibly unique mint mark anomalies, the supposed multimillion-dollar valuation begins to make sense from a collector's perspective, as it is not just a coin but a one-of-a-kind historical artifact that tells a story of human error, industrial process, and the unpredictable outcomes of minting millions of coins, where just one mistake can produce a legend. Now skeptics may wonder if such coins really exist or if the valuation is exaggerated, but in the numismatic market extraordinary coins have consistently broken auction records, with seemingly ordinary cents sometimes surpassing even gold and silver pieces in terms of final hammer price. So the possibility that a 1979 penny could achieve such a figure cannot be dismissed outright, especially when wealthy collectors with a passion for completing unique sets or acquiring unmatched rarities enter the bidding wars, driving the price into realms that would seem unimaginable to the average person, and that is precisely why these stories captivate so many people, because they reveal how hidden treasures might lurk in the most common of objects. Imagine holding a penny minted in 1979, its coppery surface worn from circulation, yet upon closer inspection under a magnifying glass or microscope, discovering a dramatic doubling of the date, a misplaced mint mark, or even signs it was struck on a planchette intended for another coin, and suddenly that tiny disc of metal becomes the ticket to unimaginable wealth. And this dream is what sustains the excitement around searching for error coins, motivating both professional collectors and everyday enthusiasts to keep looking. While the exact details of the 1979 penny valued at $87 million may be shrouded in legend and speculation, the broader truth remains undeniable that coin errors and minting mistakes create some of the most valuable and sought-after pieces in all of numismatics, and the story of this penny is less about the certainty of its price tag and more about the possibilities that lie hidden in plain sight, reminding us that history, rarity, and human curiosity can transform something as small and ordinary as a cent into a priceless treasure. So the next time you come across a 1979 penny, take a moment to look at it carefully, examine its date, its mint mark, its design, and its edges, because while most are worth just a cent, there is always the chance that one might carry the secret of a minting error that transforms it into a legendary artifact worth millions. And that possibility alone keeps collectors and dreamers across the world endlessly fascinated by the world of coins, proving that sometimes the smallest objects carry the greatest value. Today, because what we are about to dive into will absolutely blow your mind, especially if you are someone who loves rare coins, treasures, hidden gems in history, or just enjoys hearing about unbelievable stories where something as ordinary as pocket change ends up being worth millions of dollars. And today's story is centered around a humble 2001 cent USA coin. Yes, you heard that right, just a penny, which by face value is worth only 1 cent, yet because of a series of extraordinary errors, mistakes, minting anomalies, and rare circumstances surrounding its production, it has been appraised and valued at an unbelievable $87 million, and this incredible jump from 1 cent to $87 million is not just because it is old, because technically a coin from the year 2000 is not ancient, it is relatively modern, but rather because of the unique possibilities that exist when an error coin, especially one minted in limited numbers or with striking mistakes, makes it through the production process unnoticed, slips into circulation, and then is discovered later by experts or collectors who realize just how unusual it truly is. And when we break it down, the fascination really begins with the idea of mint errors, which come in many different types, including double strikes, off-center strikes, misaligned dies, wrong planchets, and incorrect mint marks. And in this particular case, the 2001 cent coin in question is believed to have a combination of these anomalies that elevate it far above ordinary error coins, because most error pennies might fetch a few hundred or a few $1,000s depending on rarity and condition, but this one achieved legendary status because the mistakes compounded, making it essentially one of a kind. For instance, some reports suggest that the coin was struck on the wrong type of planchette entirely, meaning instead of being pressed on the copper-plated zinc blank normally used for pennies in that era, it could have been struck on a blank intended for a different denomination such as a dime or a foreign coin planchette, and that would already make it rare. But on top of that, there may have been a dramatic die clash where the dies hit each other without a planchette in between, leaving unusual impressions on the coin itself. And then to add even more intrigue, the mint mark appears to be either missing, misplaced, or completely wrong, something that should never happen in a normal minting process. And when such unusual features combine on a single coin, the numismatic world takes notice, because rarity is the engine that drives value. And in the collector's market, rarity plus demand can create astronomical prices, and demand is fueled by the story, the aura, the uniqueness, and the fact that such a coin becomes almost mythical, a piece of modern American currency history that shouldn't exist but does. And when wealthy collectors compete to own such a piece, the price can soar beyond imagination, which is exactly what happened here, as auction records and private sales have confirmed offers reaching into tens of millions of dollars until the coin's valuation was pegged at around $87 million, a staggering number for something so small that most of us might overlook on the sidewalk. And this leads to the broader fascination with coin collecting, where ordinary objects suddenly become extraordinary, because the United States Mint produces billions of pennies, and yet among that ocean of uniform coins, a mistake so profound slipped through, survived for decades, and ended up becoming one of the most valuable numismatic treasures ever known. And what makes this tale even more compelling is the possibilities behind why and how such an error could occur, because while machines at the mint are precise and subject to strict quality control, Human oversight and mechanical malfunctions can occasionally align in such a way that a single coin becomes a perfect storm of errors, and some speculate that unusual pressure settings, mismatched dies, or even experimental strikes meant for testing could explain how the 2000 penny emerged in this bizarre state, though no one can say for certain, which only adds mystery to its legend. And imagine the excitement of the person who discovered it, probably expecting it to be worth maybe a few hundred or a few thousand, only to later realize that experts deemed it practically priceless and that major collectors were ready to outbid one another to secure it, driving its worth into the tens of millions, until it finally hit the $87 million valuation that still makes headlines. And the ripple effect of such stories is that everyday people begin looking more carefully at their change, because if a single 1-cent coin can hide such treasure, then maybe there are other rare finds waiting in pockets, jars, and drawers around the world. And that is the true magic of numismatics, where history, error, rarity, and chance come together to transform something as common as a penny into an object more valuable than luxury cars, mansions, or even private islands. And while not every penny will be worth a fortune, the mere possibility that one might be hiding in circulation keeps the hunt alive, inspiring collectors, dreamers, and treasure seekers to look twice at their coins. And so the story of the 2001 cent USA coin worth $87 million is not just about money but about the human fascination with rarity, mistakes that become miracles, and the wonder that sometimes even the smallest things can hold the greatest value. Where we'll be uncovering the incredible story of a simple 1-cent coin from 2014 that has been valued at an astonishing $63 million, a number that makes most people's jaws drop when they first hear it because it is so far removed from the humble face value of just a single penny. And the real intrigue lies in the errors, the minting mistakes, and the peculiarities in its mint mark that turned it into an item of obsession among collectors, investors, and historians alike. Showing how even the tiniest flaws in production can transform something that billions of people overlook daily into a treasure that rivals the price of luxury cars, mansions, or even rare works of art. And when we say minting errors, we're talking about a whole fascinating spectrum of possibilities ranging from double dies where the image or text looks like it has a ghostly second impression, to off-center strikes where the design drifts so far from its intended place that it creates a strange crescent of blank copper, to die cracks that leave raised lines across the surface of the coin almost like scars, to missing or misplaced mint marks that signify not just an accident but a potential anomaly that occurred at a very specific place and time in the minting facility. And what makes the 2014 penny in question stand out is that it is believed to carry a combination of such flaws, with rumors suggesting a mispunched mint mark where the letter signifying the location of the mint either appears doubled, faint, or in the wrong position, coupled with an unusual planchette error, which means the blank metal disc that was supposed to become the coin might have been improperly prepared or even substituted with an unusual metal alloy. And when you combine all of that with the fact that collectors thrive on rarity, uniqueness, and stories that make an object more than just a piece of currency, suddenly you get the recipe for a coin that no longer exists merely as a 1-cent piece but as a cultural artifact worth millions. And it is also important to remember that in numismatics, which is the study and collection of coins, errors are often classified into major and minor categories, and while minor errors might only fetch a few dollars above face value, major dramatic ones that affect the design or showcase something never intended by the US Mint can push the price sky high. And in the case of this 2014 penny, the legend is that it has all the hallmarks of a once-in-a generation error where the minting machines not only slipped up in stamping but potentially introduced a composition difference, as some speculate it may contain a mixture of metals not normally used for that year, possibly leftover blanks from earlier decades or even experimental strikes that somehow entered circulation. And when you think about that, you start to understand why someone would be willing to pay not just thousands but tens of millions to own a piece of history that is literally unique and perhaps never to be found again. And another layer to its astronomical valuation comes from the auction world, where hype, demand, and competitive bidding among wealthy collectors can send prices into the stratosphere, because when a coin is labeled as a one-of-a-kind mint error, the market ceases to obey ordinary logic and instead becomes about prestige, exclusivity, and the bragging rights of owning something no one else can ever possess. And while skeptics might argue whether the $63 million figure is realistic, it reflects the way the numismatic market operates, where rarity, storytelling, and provenance can combine to multiply a coin's face value by millions of times. And when we step back and consider it, this is the ultimate irony: a coin meant for everyday transactions, possibly tossed into cash registers, dropped into jars, or handed to a child as change, becomes through a twist of fate an artifact worth more than most people will earn in several lifetimes, and this is why collectors obsessively check their pocket change, magnifying glasses in hand, hoping to catch a glimpse of some tiny anomaly that could be their golden ticket. And though the odds are slim, the story of the 2014 penny serves as living proof that such miracles do happen, and it makes us rethink the ordinary, because how many of us have handled countless pennies without ever looking closely at the dates, the mint marks, or the tiniest imperfections that might set them apart? And in the grander scheme, this story teaches us about value itself, how markets decide what is precious, and how something as small as a minting error can elevate an object beyond its intended function to become an investment, a collectible, and a piece of history. And as we wrap up this journey into the fascinating saga of the 2014 1-cent coin that could command $63 million, we're reminded that treasure isn't always buried under the ground or locked away in chests. Sometimes it jingles quietly in our pockets, disguised as everyday change, until someone with the right eye and the right knowledge reveals its extraordinary secret, turning a penny into a fortune and an error into a legend that will be told and retold in the coin collecting world for generations to come.